Sometimes the best thing to do is just not overthink it and do the thing that feels like the right thing without getting too deep in the weeds. And for Utah Jazz fans, last night may be what we look back on in 10, 11 years as a historic evening, as the Utah Jazz may have drafted the best player in the draft. Not the best player available, the best player in the draft. Now, only time will tell, but Darren Peterson off the board at number 2. And here we go. Time to get excited about this basketball team. It's time to get excited about what the Utah Jazz will be able to do immediately. Darren Peterson improves them right away, and he improves them long term. Exciting night last night. I want to give a shout out to the engine room where we were at doing our live draft coverage with Gordy Chiesa, Richard Smith, and Sean O'Connell. Did our afternoon drive show there as well. So a little 7.5-hour radio shift for your guy last night. But here we go, ready to roll on a Wednesday afternoon edition of The Drive that, of course, will feature a lot of conversation about what happened last night. A.J. DiBonsa from Brigham Young off the board at number 1, making history there. Last local player to be a number 1 pick was Andrew Bogut back in the day from the University of Utah. And A.J. DiBonsa becomes the first BYU player to be drafted number 1 overall. So Washington got themselves a really good prospect. The Utah Jazz got themselves a really exciting young kid at the age of 19 with intoxicating potential. Again, will fit in and play right away and make the Jazz better immediately and improves the calculation of who the Utah Jazz can be long-term. Cameron Boozer off the board at number 3. Memphis had a good night. They also drafted Kareem Lopez, who fell a little bit to number 21. Morez Johnson Jr. from the Mavericks, kind of a reach there, a little bit of a surprise. But ultimately, I think if you're a Jazz fan, it is time to get very excited about what this team can be. Round 2 of the NBA draft will get going tonight. We are expecting to hear Richie Saunders' name at some point. The New York Knicks are on the clock. They traded their first round pick, but they had the first pick in the second round. So we'll see where Richie Saunders goes tonight, thought to be a mid-second rounder. Oklahoma City is where the mock draft on ESPN has Richie landing. Of course, Oklahoma City has a bevy of young players. They added another lottery pick last night. So fun night. Love the draft. You want to give a special shout-out to Gordy Chiesa. My man rolled in with 3 binders ready to roll. Smitty had his notes. He was awesome, and it was great to have Sean along for the ride. So if you joined us for our draft coverage, appreciate your ears last night and excited to break it down today. World Cup going on right now. Switzerland just tallied their second goal of the match against Canada, and Switzerland has a 2-0 lead over our friends north of the border as of now. The U.S. men's national team will complete their group play journey coming up tomorrow against Turkey. I guess that's how we're saying it now. Looks like Christian Pulisic is going to give it a go. The U.S. is already through to the round of 32. But a win tomorrow will really make their path very manageable, at least up until the quarterfinals. And look, this is such a wild tournament, and soccer is such a crazy sport. There's no guarantee they're going to get there. But it looks like it could be Bosnia in addition to Egypt. And then we get into the final 8 where it could be Spain. And, of course, that would take a historic upset. But we'll talk a little World Cup soccer on the program today. In addition to the NBA draft and some NBA offseason, Austin Reeves is heading back to the Lakers on a max $185 million deal. A lot of people believe the Jazz were long for Austin Reeves at one point, but that has changed. The Jazz don't need him. So away we go. All right, good guest list today. Sarah Todd, our friend from the Deseret News, will join us to break down the Jazz draft. Howard Beck from The Ringer for your NBA Daily Assist. Everett Gray, former pro hooper, played for the Runnin' Rebels, and we'll talk Jazz and some hoops with Everett Gray on the program today. Austin Ainge addressed the media last night and shed some interesting information about a meeting the Jazz had with Darren Peterson in Canton, Ohio, with Darren's family. Austin, Danny, Avery Bradley, Justin Zanuck went and sat down with Darren Peterson and Darren's family, and then it was kind of brought to light that Ryan Smith and Will Hardy sat down with Darren Peterson at the NBA Draft Combine in Chicago. And if there were any red flags, certainly not near enough for the Jazz to look away from who I think might be the best player in this draft. We're going to talk about it on the show today. And then we're going to bring back our Mark Harlan interview later on. If you missed that, we've had a lot of feedback from it. Mark joined me in studio about 2 weeks ago. And we're gonna play that back for you guys to kind of break up the basketball stuff. If you're a Utah football fan, if you're a Utah athletics fan, and you want to hear from the athletic director, it was good to have him in studio. So we'll bring that back on the program today, and we will go from there. So Sarah Todd, Howard Beck, Everett Gray, little Austin Ainge sound today, little Mark Harlan sound today. Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Happy Wednesday, halfway through that work week and one day closer to the weekend. And that guy, Porter Larson, who had his feet up on the sofa watching the NBA draft while this radio host was grinding masonry 7.5 hours.
That you were. I mean, listen, that's I guess that's a normal work day for some, but when you're talking and your brain's moving, it's a lot of energy. So kudos to you guys.
Did you watch
Sounded
the draft?
Good. Watched some of it.
Okay.
I was in and out.
All right.
But I listened to some of it as well on ESPN 700, of course. Round 2 today with Alan Hahn, PJ Carlesimo, a few others.
On the ESPN broadcast?
Yeah, just the
radio or the TV?
Radio.
Okay, Alan Hahn, longtime New Yorker. PJ Carlesimo, once upon a time was choked by Latrell Sprewell, but a very good coach.
Corey Alexander and
Shout
Seth
out.
Greenberg.
Okay, that'll be fun.
Not quite the ESPN 700 dais,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know.
Any former pro coaches
PJ.
besides PJ? Give me Gordy over PJ any day. By the way, watching Gordy Chieso work is a unbelievable experience. My man has binders of notes, handwritten, by the way, and they're laminated. And as soon as I say a name of a player or a name of a team, even so, at one point I just threw something wild at him. We went from talking about the NBA draft to local players.
Right.
And within 3 flips, he had a handwritten list of Utah and BYU players drafted since 2000.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The guy is a literal encyclopedia, and he copies that all down onto these, like, it's funny. We need to get our guy a laptop, but at the same time, I love seeing his, what is probably like a storage room full of notes that he's taken through, a half century in the NBA.
Keeps them all.
Yeah.
Has them all at some point. And I'll say it, if I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 more times. Gordy Chieso put him in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. A pleasure to work with Gordy last night and Smitty and Sean O'Connell too. So we're going to bring in Sarah Todd today to talk a little NBA draft, a little Utah Jazz. But before Sarah stops by, courtesy of our good friends at DraftKings, it's time now for your opening tip. Now, DraftKings Sports is live in all 50 states. Yes, that means you, Utah. The whole world is watching one tournament right now. Group stage chaos, knockout drama, stoppage time heartbreak. The DraftKings Sports app is now live in Utah, so whether you're catching the early kickoff before work or the late match at the bar, you're in on every minute, every match, every moment, all in one app. The world's biggest stage is in the palm of your hand. New DraftKings customers sign in with a promo code ESPN700. Spend $5 to get $200 in total rewards. That's code ESPN700 in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Event trading offered by DraftKings Predictions, a CFTC-registered introducing broker. Trading involves risk of loss. Market availability varies. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 every 7 days via click-to-claim issued in non-withdrawable prediction dollars that expire in 1 year. That ends on June the 28th, so hurry. Terms are dkng.co/predictions promo. All right, so as I referenced at the top, sometimes the best thing to do is just not overthink it and do the thing that makes the most sense. And that is certainly what the Utah Jazz did last night. Very exciting to consider what this may look like coming up in, 8, 9, 10 years. We could look back on last night as history made by the Utah Jazz. And there's so many things that have to fall into place in order to draft a prospect like Darren Peterson. And that's one of the things we've discussed all year. It was problematic and has been problematic just covering the team day in and day out. I mean, once upon a time, most Jazz games were really, really intriguing because they were really good and they were winning a lot of games and building something that could have been special. But over the past 4 years, there have been very few nights like that. Not zero nights, but very few nights that really motivate a daily sports talk radio host in Salt Lake City, Utah, to lean into game narratives and what does this mean? And what we tried to do is focus on the growth of some of the younger players. Is this Keontae stuff real? Who is Kyle Filipowski in the NBA? Can you at least play Isaiah Collier as your backup point guard for 18 minutes a night? Stuff like that. That doesn't move the needle. Darren Peterson does. Because number one, you actually have to find a little bit of luck in order to land here in the draft. And as we all know in this market, luck is not something the Jazz have ever really had at all. As far as moving up in the lottery, they had never done that. In order to move up historically, they've had to make a couple of trades. But as far as getting the luck that San Antonio has received in order to draft Tim Duncan and David Robinson and Victor Wembanyama and build their dynasties, or Cleveland has received in order to draft LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and win their championships, or Orlando received back in the day with Shaq and Penny Hardaway. We've never had that, but we have it now. So that's number one. You got to somehow, some way luck into a spot in the draft where you have a high enough pick to draft a player that could be a talent that transcends a generation. But the other thing is the player has to be available. There are years where, 1 year Cleveland had the number one overall pick and they took like Anthony Bennett because there was nobody that good available. And there are some years where the number one pick is incredible and the number two pick is like, yeah, I guess we'll kind of wait and see. But the Jazz luck into two, and they also luck into the fact that a generationally special player was available at two. And by the way, he just fits in perfectly with what the Jazz already have in place. I am telling you, you are going to love this kid. I'm sure a lot of you have just read social media posts, Kansas fans saying that he's selfish and he's injury prone and pulls himself out of games and isn't available. Look, we all were wondering what happened this year with Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. Bill Self said out loud, a guy who has coached some of the transcendent players of not just this generation, but in basketball period, with a Joel Embiid and a Paul Pierce, that Darren Peterson's the best talent that he's ever had at the University of Kansas. That right there stops you in your tracks. As I've said before, it's the dumbest thing we do in the NBA draft combine, where we measure these dudes without shoes. You play basketball with shoes on. It makes zero sense. We didn't used to do this. I don't know why we do now. He's closer to 6'5", 6'6" than he is 6'4", which is his listed height because they measured him in bare feet. Well, don't worry, Jazz fans, because last I checked, when Darren is playing games, he will be playing with his shoes on, unless there's something I've missed over the past 24 hours. He has great positional size. His shot-making profile is the best in this draft by far, and that includes AJ, because Darren has range that AJ doesn't have. He can handle it. He shoots off the bounce. Catch and shoot is good. He plays on the ball. He plays off the ball. He can fit in next to Keontae. I envision Darren Peterson as the primary ball handler for this Jazz team. I don't know what's going to happen. Only Will Hardy does, and this will be up to Will as these players compete. But I think Keontae George should come off the bench. I think Keontae George, for a winning team in the NBA, is perfect as this Jamal Crawford, Jordan Clarkson before JC aged a little bit. This bring him in off the bench, light a fire, go give me 25, 26 minutes, score 16, 17 points, and be a star in your role. I think we should see, I don't know what we will see, but Darren Peterson, Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Walker Kessler, Keontae George off the bench as your top six players for the Utah Jazz. What does it look like next year? Anything more than a 20-game improvement in this league is rather unprecedented. We did see it with San Antonio, but they do have a player named Victor Wembanyama. But the Jazz have a chance to have about a 20-game improvement, I think, in the win-loss column. As I always say when we do this exercise, if you're going to tell me the Jazz are going to move up, I need to know who's moving down. And there are some teams that I think fit that bill at this point, depending on what we see the rest of the offseason. But last night was a massive win for the Utah Jazz. They did the thing that they should have done. And for the second straight year, Austin Ainge has just shown that regardless of what the noise is, of what people around the league are saying about Ace Bailey maybe not wanting to play in Utah, or Darren Peterson not taking a visit to Salt Lake, it doesn't matter to Austin. If the best player on the board is available in that slot, Austin is taking him, period, as he should. Great night for the Jazz last night. There is a chance. There's a debate to be had here. I'm not saying it's absolutely truth. This might be the best talent, pure talent, the Utah Jazz have ever drafted in the moment. Now, Karl Malone, obviously historically great. He was the 13th pick. Okay, I'm talking about on the night they made the pick, is there a player that has this type of talent? I don't think so. Darrell Griffith was the number 2 pick, unbelievable college player. We could go over some of the other picks, as far as Darren Williams and such, trading up to take D-Will. In my opinion, Darren Peterson is the most talented player and prospect the Utah Jazz have ever drafted on draft night. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up on the other side, we'll continue this conversation. Sarah Todd covers the Utah Jazz for the Deseret News. Then it's Howard Beck, Everett Gray, little Austin Ainge sound. Mark Harland will get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program and say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. You're not going to have to wait that long to see Darren Peterson play basketball for the Utah Jazz. The Summer League right around the corner up at the Huntsman Center. And the last time the Summer League was at the Huntsman Center, a young man named Donovan Mitchell just gave it to Jason Tatum, and it kind of opened all of our eyes. So we'll see what Darren Peterson is able to do. Sarah Todd, I believe you were at Summer League watching Donovan do his thing against Tatum, were you not?
I was not actually.
Oh.
I came in after Donovan's first couple of seasons, but also, I mean, I feel like it's just necessary for me to call you out and tell you that you're wrong because the Summer League was up at the Huntsman Center the last 2 years.
Well, you know, Sarah, it's early in the show, okay? I did 7 hours of radio last night. The mentals aren't necessarily sharp as of yet.
Listen, Spence, I literally stepped off of a plane from Budapest yesterday, barely had time to even set my bags down before I went straight over to ZBBC. I covered the draft. I wrote 2 full stories. Let's not make excuses.
Okay, fair enough. But did you delete your cache since you and I last spoke?
Yeah, I've cleared the cache.
Okay, that a girl. All right, if I say to you, there's a chance the Jazz drafted the best player, not available, but the best player in the class last night, you say what?
I say the Jazz did draft the best player in the class.
Nice. And tell me why you think that.
Okay. End of radio show. No.
All right, Sarah, take care. Be good.
Yeah, I think I've been saying it for a long time. I think that Darren Peterson was the best player in the draft. And it was one of the drafts where if I say that and then the person standing in front of me says, well, I believe that AJ DeBonta is the best player in the draft, they have a great argument. Like, I don't think that there was necessarily a wrong answer. I just tend to think that I'm right. So I think Darren Peterson, it feels like the sky is the limit. He gives me so much shades of early Kawhi, but also has like a lot more interior scoring finesse than that too. I mean, he literally can do everything. The only sort of red flags or flaws at all were health related. By all accounts, he's been completely checked and cleared, and anything that maybe has been cause for concern, everyone on medical staff and all of the front office executives say that they're not concerned and that everybody was comfortable going forward with Darren Peterson. And so if the health checks out, then in my mind, there really aren't flaws to his game, only the potential to get better from here. And he already is amazing. So it feels like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, the shot-making profile. I mean, look, to your point, I love AJ. I think AJ is going to be awesome. But Darren has range right now that AJ has to find. AJ struggled with his 3 in college, and I think he's going to be fine there. We've seen plenty of really good shooters struggle a bit from 3 in college. Darren has endless range. He goes right, he goes left, he can finish at the rim. He's got a little mid-range stuff. The athleticism is jaw-dropping. I made the statement earlier that there's a chance this is the most talented player that the Utah Jazz have ever drafted. I mean, Carl was 13, and Carl turned out to be historically special. So Carl may have turned out to be the best player the Jazz had drafted, but nobody thought Carl was Carl on draft night. If you look back in Jazz history, there's a chance that, at least in a vacuum, this is the most talented prospect the Utah Jazz have ever had.
Yeah, and I think that's the right word, right, is prospect. Like, he probably is the most talented prospect, like right out of the gate of what you can see is possible, what you know is like tangible just from what he's capable of as a 19-year-old. What he turns into, what that becomes in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years of his NBA career, it remains to be seen. None of us have a crystal ball, but right now, as what he is, what he looks like right now, like, yes, this definitely, I mean, that's a conversation to have, is that he could be the most talented prospect the Jazz have ever drafted. And like you said, it's unlimited range, but it's also, I think, one of the things that is so special about Darren is like his touch and his finesse, and the fact that as a 19-year-old, and you saw this a lot when he was playing in high school and even just in his limited time at Kansas, he is not a player that like gets sped up or forces shots, which is a really, really normal and understandable thing for 17, 18, 19-year-old basketball players to do. That's not bad. So when you see a player that like kind of gets sped up in pressure moments, maybe forces too many shots when they're the guy, that's really normal. To already not have that as something that he needs to work out of as a very young player is probably the most impressive thing to me about his game.
Tell me, and you wrote on this because we had learned that a group of Jazz brass made the trip to Ohio to sit down with Darren and his family. Tell us what you learned about that meeting and what Jazz fans should know.
Yeah, it was a trip that served two purposes, right? Like the Jazz, they knew that they loved Darren and that, that was the guy that they wanted, but they just wanted one more meeting just to kind of solidify the decision, make sure they weren't making the wrong decision by thinking that that was the guy that they wanted to go for. And then the other purpose was to really sell Darren on the prospect of coming to Utah. Not that he wasn't sold before. Darren had already said that when he met with the Jazz in Utah, he told his agent afterwards, he was like, man, I know they don't have the number one pick, but I really felt connected with those guys in the interview with them. Like that went really well. So they had already made a great impression. They'd been in contact with him throughout the pre-draft process. But the fact that the Jazz brain trust, right? Danny Ainge, Austin Ainge, Justin Zanuck, Avery Bradley, that they all went out to Canton, Ohio. They went to Darren's hometown on his turf, a place that he was comfortable with, to meet with his family this past weekend. That was a really big gesture that Darren appreciated. And then when they got there, they basically were like, look, throughout the tanking years, through the rebuild, look at how many fans were still showing up. This is the fan base that you could play for. This is the kind of offense that Will wants to play. There's a lot of motion, movement. You're going to be playing pick and roll. You're going to be coming off screens. You're going to have plenty of scoring opportunity. Think about what it's going to look like, a backcourt with you and Keontae George, who's this emerging player. And they just kind of laid out things and sold. It was a sales pitch, right? Like, this is what it could be. And it got Darren really excited. His family and Darren, they were all really impressed by it. And so it served both purposes, selling the Jazz to Darren and also making sure that he was the right guy for the Jazz.
So when it comes to realistic expectations as far as numbers go, because sometimes people just throw numbers out there and like, yeah, he's going to be a 25-5 guy. And then you look at the 25-5 guy list, and it's Giannis, it's LeBron, it's Jokic, it's Tatum, it's Luka, it's Cade, it's Banchero. I mean, all of the 25-5 guys are the guys you would expect. It's Steph Curry in his heyday. It's Durant. Like that's the top shelf level NBA superstar player. So I hesitate to believe he can be that right away. But then you look at like the numbers at Huntington Prep and AAU. I mean, they're just ridiculous. So like right out of the gates as a rookie, as far as the production goes, what do you think it looks like?
Yeah, you're right to be hesitant because the Jazz, even through the rebuild or even before that, they have historically not been a team that wants to just throw guys to the wolves, put them out there and make them the guy on day one. We've seen that Will Hardy and his staff and the way that this new ownership group and front office and everything, the way that they like to operate is bringing guys along slowly. I mean, even with Ace Bailey, right? Like they didn't, immediately start running plays for Ace on day one. I think that you're getting a different player and a more complete and ready player in Darren Peterson. But I don't think that there's going to be the pressure on him or the expectation for him to be the 25-5 guy right out of the gate on day one. But I think that is what they're hoping that he becomes. And so I don't think that you should expect it right away. That being said, if it were to happen, it wouldn't 100% surprise me because he's so good. But let's not forget, fully capable of becoming that player that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's well said, because I actually just looked this up, and rookies to average 25-5. It's Luka, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, and randomly it's Tyreek Evans, who played for a awful Kings team.
Right.
But when you're joining a team that isn't necessarily, void of talent, and you're expected to be a high usage player, that's when you see the numbers that you see from these players that I just referenced that not only are historically great, but were relied upon to do everything. So generally speaking, I know you've kind of outlined that with the previous answer, but what sort of role do you envision right out of the gates? Do you think he starts? I've always been of the mindset that if Keontae is going to be a rotational player on a team that's trying to win, the best role for him is off the bench, only because of his defensive inefficiencies and his ability to light a fire. I mean, we know that he can get buckets, so I'd like to see Darren start. Do you think he does?
Yeah, I'm not. I was talking about this a little bit last night and then earlier today, and I think that starting lineups and closing lineups, I'm not 100% sure on. Like you, I think that there is really, really great opportunity, and it could be positionally the right decision to have Keontae be your sixth man. But I think that is so incredibly dependent on what Darren looks like and what Ace looks like for this season. And so it might not be right away. It might be something to move into. But there are like a few context clues that we get from conversations that have happened over the last 24 hours. So one of the things that Darren said last night when we were interviewing him was that he was excited about a lot of the players, that the three big guys were going to dominate. So he's talking about Lowry, Jaren, and Walker. But he really specifically mentioned, I think that me and Keontae have a chance to be the best backcourt in the NBA. That makes me think that there's been a conversation already had about him and Keontae playing together. And so that does lead me to believe that there's probably a chance that Darren is going to start. And it also leads me to believe that there's a lot of expectation for Keontae and Darren to play together. And it's something that he's excited about, and it's something that Jazz are excited about. Also, in talking to Austin Ainge, hearing him talk about the fact that positionally, point guard doesn't have as much definition on offense these days, so much as it does on defense. So, like, what he's saying there is, you can have Keontae and Darren both play combo guards. The way that offenses are initiated is so different nowadays than they were back when you were thinking about a more traditional point guard. But when you're talking about who's going to be the lead guard on defense, who's going to be the point of attack defender, the Jazz have been completely devoid of that for years, and they need someone like Darren Peterson. And so that does make me think that they want Darren to take on that role, that they want him to be the lead guard, the point of attack defender that they know that he can be right out of the gate. And so I think that there's a lot to be uncovered rotationally, who's going to be in a starting lineup, who's going to be in a closing lineup, how Will is going to kind of move through rotations and what groupings are going to play together at different times. But I think there are context clues that lead me to believe that, they're kind of thinking about starting Keontae and Darren together.
Any holes in his game? I mean, anywhere he has to improve? I mean, when you look at, even if you dig into the advanced metrics, the one area, at least at Kansas, that isn't necessarily elite is primary ball handling in pick and roll situations, but he didn't do that a lot. So there's really not enough data to indicate whether or not that's a legitimate concern. I don't see a lot of holes. I see a very complete player with great size and measurables and athleticism that just, the variable is health, and if he puts in the work, ultimately, I think he's got a chance to be really special. Do you see anywhere he needs to improve?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, the health stuff was the biggest red flag, and that's because there are no red flags when it comes to his game.
Yeah.
I think that even that the ball handling and stuff like that, he did more of that in high school than he did at Kansas. Kind of the disjointed season that he had, I feel like that was a little bit a part of the problem when we're talking about that. Like, maybe he would have been a little bit more on ball if there was more kind of day-to-day chemistry. Some people have pointed to the fact that he did seem a little bit disconnected from some of the teammates, a little disjointed. But I mean, it is so hard for freshman players in college to really get that sort of ingrained and second nature chemistry with their teammates, because these college teams turn over so much. They barely get any time to play together. They're lucky if they're playing 30 games together in the first place. I mean, they're going to knock that out in the first couple of months in the NBA. So, I just think that players get so much more of a chance to create chemistry and get to know their teammates in the NBA. And so outside of that, there's nothing that I'm really worried about. I would love to see what he looks like and have him have the opportunity to play a little bit more pick and roll and be kind of more of a primary ball handler and just see what it looks like, right? But you can always play him as a combo guard and play him off ball. I'm really excited to see him kind of running off screens and getting spot-up shots like that, and Will Hardy's offense is perfect for that. He's a great ball handler when it comes to kind of isolations play. He has a great first step. His foot speed is really incredible. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes with the ball. His touch is great from everywhere. He's a good defender. So, I mean, if anybody knows exactly where the holes in Darren Peterson's game is, like, please hit me up, because the way that I see it, he's great all around.
There's really no use to litigate this question much, but I do wonder whether or not you were able to get any information about the voices in the room making the decision, and if any of them were loudly in support of Cameron Boozer at 2 instead of Darren Peterson.
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything about kind of in the days and weeks leading up to it. What I can tell you is that I had someone within the Jazz organization a little more than a year ago now. They were talking to me about the Cooper Flag draft, and they said, Darren Peterson, he's a senior in high school. If he was in the draft today, I'd take him over Cooper Flag. So there were people in the Jazz that have liked Darren and thought he was the most talented player long before the most recent weeks and days leading up to the draft. There were scouts and people that were talking about Darren being the best player in the 2026 class back in 2024. And so it is not a surprise to me that he ended up being the guy that they wanted. And with Washington signing Trae Young to a long deal, it makes sense to me that they went for someone that wasn't a guard. And so I think that it was all lucky stars that aligned. And I think that Darren was the guy that they wanted no matter what.
Man, if you don't think America's a great country, $212 million for Trae Young, Sarah, I will tell you what, that is quite a contract.
Listen, Sarah Todd would not have paid. What are we doing, Spence? No one wanted the guy when they were trading for him.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to pay him that much. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, no, I was stunned. Let's get an update on where we're at with Walker Kessler, Sarah. As of now, Tim McMahon reporting that the deal on the table is $5,140. Walker's camp, by the way, the same agents that represent Trae Young. Life is good for Aaron Mintz and the group at CAA. I maintain that I have a hard time believing this ends with any other scenario than Walker back here. But what's your understanding of where we're at right now with these negotiations?
Yeah, my understanding of where things are exactly where kind of everyone expected them to be at this point, like both sides, if I'm being honest. The Jazz were going to put out an offer, and almost certainly CAA and Aaron Mintz were going to say, no, we want more. And then the negotiations start from there. Like that's how this was always going to work. And so it does not surprise me that they set a number and then that CAA doesn't want it. Yes, that's how this works. And I know that there's kind of a bigger spotlight on this right now than maybe another restricted free agent situation, because it's Walker, because of the injury, because I know that he was frustrated he didn't get the extension right away. Also, the Jazz are a team that's been spurned before by restricted free agent situations. And so, like, a little bit of a bigger spotlight. But, like, I do think this gets resolved, and that's how the negotiations go. Like, no one's going to be happy right away. The Jazz will probably move up, and CAA will probably eventually say yes to a number that's lower than what they 100% wanted. But, that's what happens here.
All right, before I set you loose, the Jazz do have they have a mechanism to add a vet if they want. They have that non-taxpayer mid-level exception, as Bobby Marks has pointed out in his offseason guide. So, by the time we get to the start of the season, thoughts on maybe one or two pieces added to the group to maybe even make it even more exciting?
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little while ago, but I think it's interesting, and Summer League is going to be so important as this is all unfolding, which is also kind of the opening of free agency. And so it all kind of happens at the same time of, seeing what Darren's going to look like, where is Ace at kind of in his progression. It could be nice to have another kind of wing type player to play behind Ace Bailey and to kind of play that kind of defensive, or maybe even just like, kind of lightning rod wing type player. And so it makes me think of guys like Ayo Dosunmu, right, that just got paid in Minnesota. But it could be someone like Kelly Oubre or someone like that you just get another positionally good-sized wing player that would be coming off the bench to give them a bit more depth. There's a lot of young guys on this team if you're outside of kind of that starting five. But I also don't want anyone to forget about the fact that Steve Mikhailuk and John Konchar are both also on this roster, and the Jazz really, really like those players. So maybe it's not someone that necessarily comes in and has to play like the guard or that wing position right away. There also might end up being a little bit short on center talent, because if you're playing Triple J at the 4 and you've got Walker at the 5, if Nurkic isn't going to re-sign, then you're going to need some help in some backup center spots. So that's where I'd be thinking.
Sarah, thanks for the time. Where can our Jazz fan listeners find your good work, the couple of pieces you've already written on the draft?
Yeah, follow me on any of the socials at NBA Sarah, and you can read everything at Deseret.com.
Great. I'll see you at Summer League, where I'll teach you how to delete your cache, okay?
Okay, I'll see you at Summer League in the building that it's been in for the last 3 years.
Unnecessary to choose violence on the way in and on the way out, Sarah. My gosh.
I'm sorry. I'm jet lagged. Please excuse me.
You're excused. Thank you. Be well, okay?
Okay, you too, man.
I totally forgot that Summer League's been at the Huntsman Center over the past couple of years. It's a better story to say that last time he was there, Donovan did his thing against Jason Tatum. It's a better story. What do you want to talk about? Cody Williams, Summer League memories, Jazz fans?
Right. And I think it's because of renovations and whatnot.
Correct.
That it's been up at the Huntsman Center. But let's just keep it there. How about that?
I wouldn't mind. I can walk to it. I can't walk to the Delta Center. I guess I could technically, but
yes,
I can.
Could.
It would take like 2 hours.
Come on.
It takes 10 minutes for me to walk to the Huntsman Center. How long do you think it would take me to walk to the Huntsman Center from my house? Can I look that up on maps, by the way?
I mean, I walk into the office. Usually it takes me like 20 minutes maybe.
Yeah, it's going to take me a lot longer than 20 minutes. The Jazz have a $15 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception to use on potentially a veteran piece, because the roster still needs to be filled out. I mean, there's so many questions about Collier and Filipowski and Cody Williams. You know, what is it going to look like? Sarah did say the Jazz likes Svi Mikhailuk. That's one thing to think about. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up on the other side, Howard Beck will join us. More NBA basketball coming up. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, we got round 2 of the NBA draft tonight. After a really fun night last night, special thank you to everybody who came out to our draft party at the Engine Room. Great new spot here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. The Utah Jazz walk away with Darren Peterson, and away we go. Let's talk some basketball with the great Howard Beck on a Wednesday from The Ringer. What's up, Howard? How are you, bud?
I'm doing great. You guys you know how to put me in a great mood. You bring me into Gaslight Anthem. It is the peppiest, most upbeat, exhilarating song about death that you could possibly bring me into.
Yeah,
so, you know.
Indeed. No, indeed. It's a great track, and you can intellectualize the lyrics if you want, but you just enjoy the music and not get too deep in it, yeah?
There you go. There you go.
All right, Howard, I know you are not necessarily a draft guru, but you cover the sports, and the Utah Jazz may have drafted a player last night that, if we look back on this in 9 or 10 years, could turn out to be as good as any of them, if not better. Only time will tell. And every year there's a player, oftentimes drafted as high as 2, that doesn't work out. But we're pretty excited around here about Darren Peterson. What do you think?
So my Ringer colleague, Jay Kyleman, who is our resident draft expert and spends all of his time doing this, I believe was referring to Darren Peterson as potentially a generational type scorer. I think it was something like, I think generational was in there somewhere. And on Bill Simmons' pod said that he could see him averaging 20 as a rookie. I think that's a tall task, if not because of any knock on Peterson, but because he's entering a team with a bunch of really accomplished scorers now. And, you know, all these veterans are going to defer to a rookie, no matter how talented he is? I mean, we'll see. And that's all for Will Hardy to sort out in the weeks and months ahead. But my gosh, everybody's just raving about his talent, obviously. And, you know, I think it's to his benefit that he's joining a team that, and this is where I think the Jazz have been smart, right? Like you and I have spent plenty of time criticizing various, you know, moves or non-moves or direction over the last few years, but like deciding, and they didn't know what the lottery was going to bring them, but deciding ahead of time, it's time to turn the corner and add some veteran help here and bring in Jaren Jackson Jr. and then the development of Keontae George and their decision to hold on to Larry Markkinen, which you and I both disagreed with at times, and assuming that they bring back Walker Kessler, and then you bring Peterson into this, like at Ace Bailey, like suddenly, oh my gosh, there's a real roster here. They look really good. And I think the biggest thing is going to be partially managing expectations outside, but managing expectations within too, because Ace Bailey's going to want more as a second-year guy, and Peterson's going to come in with all the swagger of a guy who thought he should have been the number 1 overall pick and was number 2, and you got a bunch of guys who've already earned their position and their spot in the pecking order. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the numbers because we were talking about this earlier. The numbers in high school and in AAU and then in truncated moments at Kansas are really, really impressive. But sometimes people that cover the league is like, yeah, he's a 20-10 guy. And I always say, well, go look up the list of names that you just said average 20-10. And so if you throw around 25-5, okay, maybe he can be that. The players that have averaged 25-5 as rookies are LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, and randomly Tyreek Evans, in addition to Luka. Okay, so it's just like a very, very small list. And to your point, there are a lot of good players already on this roster. We may have forgotten how good Lowry is because he hasn't been allowed to play, and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ace and Keontae, et cetera, as you referenced. And so I don't know that it's realistic for him to average 20 points per game, but to your point, that's not because I don't think he can. It's because I think this is going to be a system where everyone's going to eat a little bit, you know?
Yes, and I think it's to his benefit because as much as he may want to go and improve himself on day one and go win Rookie of the Year, because who doesn't want that, I think it is a rare benefit for a guy drafted, you know, and for his level of talent to be drafted top 1, 2, 3 in the draft and go to a team that's actually, you know, ready to win with veteran talent. And they are, and it takes pressure off of him. And he may not want the pressure off of him, and he may want all the reps and all the shots and everything else. But I think development-wise, like, look at what Dylan Harper and even VJ Edgecombe were able to do. Like, these two guys look like they're going to be absolute studs. Dylan Harper just looks incredible and has such a great NBA Finals and a great playoffs period. But he didn't have to carry it all from day one, as a guy drafted in his position often has to, because he did not come into a barren team. Neither did VJ Edgecombe, and neither now is Darren Peterson. And it's funny to say that, given where the Jazz were in the standings, but you and I both know that the standings are a little deceiving in this case. So, no, I think it's a great situation for him.
So, as I always say, the expectations around here get a little loose, and maybe that's what happens with a fan base that hasn't seen winning basketball for 4 years and a local media landscape that 50% of them cut paychecks from the Smith Entertainment Group. If you're telling me that the Jazz are going to be a top 4 team in the West next year, you got to tell me who's going to move down, okay? Other teams are trying to win as well. But now that we know, and we've debated this, Howard, but now we know it's Darren. Okay, we know it's Darren Peterson. They've got a $15 million non-tax-paying mid-level exception that they can use to maybe bring in a vet wing or what have you. And you look at the landscape, it's safe to say OKC and San Antonio aren't going anywhere. We'll see what happens with the Lakers and LeBron. They bring back Austin Reeves. Denver has Jokic. Houston's a wild card to me. Minnesota moves on from Randall. Portland took some steps up. Phoenix has Booker. I could keep going with the Clippers. We'll see what happens with Kawhi, and Golden State still has Steph, and whatever. You get the deal. If the Jazz are going to move up realistically into the playoff range, which is 5 or 6, I still believe a play-in and a 45-win season is an unbelievable jump from where they were a year ago. If the Jazz are going to move up several spots, just generally speaking of the Western Conference, give me your thoughts on the teams that are in that area and who may move down in order for the Jazz to move up.
So stipulating as we need to that it's June 24th.
Yep.
Free agency hasn't opened yet. We got a lot of summer to go, and everyone's going to make changes. But, pencil in the Thunder and Spurs at the top, and we're going to assume health for everybody for the moment. Everybody has magically healed from everything, and everybody will play all 82 games next year.
Love it.
The Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Rockets, the Wolves, those 6 teams, I don't think any of them are going anywhere. Now, Kevin Durant could fall off a cliff because he's at that age. You never know. LeBron, with or without LeBron, the Lakers, they have Luka.
Yeah.
Apparently they've locked up Austin Reeves on a max deal. I don't think the Lakers are going anywhere either. And the Timberwolves, they offloaded Randall, but they've got Naz Reid, and they used the money from the savings from offloading Randall to then, lock up Ayo Dosunmu, who's really important. They needed guard help. So I don't think the Jazz are not knocking out any of those 6 teams. That is a very, very tall order. That's not a knock on the Jazz and what they're building. That's just way too much to ask. So no, the top 6 are locked. Where you find some opportunities in that play-in range, right? Phoenix, Portland, Clippers, Warriors. And I think the Jazz can knock out one of those teams. The issue becomes, guess who else is probably going to knock out one of those teams or is doing the same? The Dallas Mavericks,
Yep.
who have Cooper Flagg entering year 2, a full season presumably of Kyrie Irving. Again, we're waving the magic wand. Everybody's healthy. And the Mavericks will continue under Masai Ujiri, who's a great GM. They will continue to add talent there as well. So the Jazz are going to leapfrog for sure the Kings and the Grizzlies and probably the Pelicans, because the Pelicans, for all their talent, just whatever, they're cursed. Chemistry, injuries, whatever. They always look good on paper, and they just can't get it together. But the Pelicans actually do have talent, and I can't just wave them away either entirely. So there are other teams that are looking to make that move into that 7 to 10 range. And, yeah, the Suns could fall out, the Blazers could fall out, the Clippers, the Warriors, but, more than one team is probably moving in, too. So it's still a lot. But if you had to ask me right now, June 24th, you have to make a prediction. Are the Jazz at least in the play-in? I'm going to say yes.
So let's move off the Jazz because there's a lot of really interesting NBA storylines. And when Giannis gets traded, you have to talk about Giannis getting traded. And, when I first saw the outline of the deal, I actually thought Milwaukee did pretty well. And I've heard several people pontificate since then. They should have done this a year or 2 ago. And if they did, the haul would have been better. And I get it from this angle. None of them. And look, I like Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is a fine player, and he's a good offensive player. Maybe they move on from him based off some of their draft decisions. It seems like maybe they're just kind of going to do the complete rebuild. There's not a Jaylen Brown on the list of players they receive, but there's some good young pieces. There's 3 firsts. There's a swap. There's a second. So how do you think this plays out with Miami, and how do you think Milwaukee did moving off of Giannis?
We'll start with the Bucks. It's tough now. one, Giannis is 31 and will turn 32 next season. Two, he's got a pretty bad injury history over the last several years. And three, the market has just changed. It's hard to get those all-in deals where you're getting, all of the picks and all of the swaps and some prospects or whatever. I don't think anybody around the league who's been paying attention is surprised that this was a fairly modest haul for a guy who's a two-time MVP and a Finals MVP and a champion. It's unfortunate, but I think they did about as well as they were going to. And besides that, Giannis, with a year left on his deal and wanting a big max extension and all that stuff and being able to kind of direct a little bit about where he would or wouldn't re-sign has an impact too. So the Bucks did okay under the circumstances. They got some future draft capital, and at a time when the Heat should be on the, or could be on the downswing again, right? There's like 20, 31, 32, 33 range for those picks. And by then, Giannis is possibly fading. So that's Milwaukee's side. And we'll see, do they flip Tyler Hero and any of these Hakas and these other pieces? Are they going to continue to try to just add draft capital? The Heat side of it, listen, anytime you can get a guy who, wherever you want to put Giannis, he's still a top 10 player at minimum. You get him when you can, and you figure out the rest later. And that's what Pat Riley has done for many years. Go get the star, figure out the rest later. I don't know about the fit with Bam Adebayo, but hey, you've got two all-star big men now. I don't know where their playmaking and shooting is coming from, but they've got the rest of the summer. Again, it's June 24th. They've got the rest of the summer to figure it out. I trust Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg and that front office and that franchise to figure out how to build around Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're not going to squander this chance. So tremendous coup for them. It's a great get. Pat, I wrote it today on the Ringer. Pat Riley has done it again. This is probably the last big swing for him. He's 81, and you knew he was going to have another one of these eventually. And it had been a while since they got Jimmy Butler in 2019, which revived them for a time and got them to two finals. So I don't think today we can say that the Heat are ready to challenge the Knicks, much less the Pistons or the Celtics. But when you and I are talking again in October, Spence, that could be a very interesting discussion.
Speaking of the Knicks, it took Jimmy Dolan one day to come out and make an ass of himself and talk about financial decisions and how they're not going to look. He's the owner. If you don't want to go to the second apron, that's fine. Owners in the past have shown that if you have a championship team, they're willing to write checks. And certainly the business of basketball has always been good in New York, even when they're not winning. But they have decisions to make. They might lose Mitchell Robinson. They probably will. Landry Shamet, who shot like Ray Allen circa 99 during that playoff run. They moved their first-round pick, and they have the first pick in the second round. But the Knicks have to fill out the roster, and they've got the bulk of it under contract. But if he's going to go on the cheap, there's not a lot of great options out there. How do you think this plays out?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it goes, too. Look, Dolan left himself a little bit of an out because I think he said something about, but I'll leave that to Leon or Leon, Rose, obviously the team president is going to make that decision. The second apron, it's not a spending issue. Like the Knicks have never been afraid to spend, and often to their detriment. They have, way back in the day, they were always overspending and on the wrong guys. But the second apron is really hard to deal with in terms of your ability to then make adjustments to your roster. So I can see wanting to avoid it if you can. But the one time you do go into the second apron in this league is if you are a contender or a champion, and they are. And so, their front office will figure it out. But, yeah, look, I mean, the chances of them losing Mitchell Robinson seem pretty significant, and or Landry Shamet and other members of that bench. And that's what happens. You win a championship and everybody looks better and guys break out and everybody comes, trying to poach your talent. And the system is designed to force you to make hard decisions. So I think they'll lose at least a piece or two from that rotation. And then the question will be, can that front office, which has been pretty savvy the last several years, can they find suitable replacements? Because you don't want to go into next season with Karl Anthony Towns as your only center. As much progress as he's made as a defender and playmaker and everything, like Mitchell Robinson was huge for that team as a rebounder and defender and shot blocker. So if they lose him, they're going to have work to do.
So It's interesting to consider the Micah Nori situation. I feel like everybody likes Micah Nori. He seems to have a really good reputation around the NBA. And I'll just tell you this: earlier in the Blazers process, there was a report out there that they were interested in Jeff Van Gundy. Before Jeff got back into coaching, and he was in media, he was good enough to come on this show every week. I sent him a text, and I will just say the interest was not mutual. Okay. And now we find out why. So JB Bickerstaff today called the structure of the contract for Mike and Nori, quote, a slap in the face to our value. One guaranteed deal, below market salary, heavily based on incentives based off the team's success. And look, I don't know if we would say, hey, if this was anyone other than Tom Dundon, who already has this label of being a total cheapskate, maybe we would say, hey, this is smart, savvy business from an owner that typically pays his coaches. This is a pretty slippery slope and a dangerous precedent to set. And I guess if you're Mike and Nori, I mean, you know the deal, Howard. In our business, the old saying is like, okay, you get an opportunity. If you say no, someone else is going to say yes, and he wants to be a head coach. I get it. But what's your takeaway and from the just kind of the fallout of this deal where the Blazers have hired Mike and Nori on a contract that seems to be rather insulting to NBA head coaches?
Well, JB Bickerstaff, who, of course, not only the coach of the Pistons, but he's the current president of the Coaches Association, so that it is definitely his role to opine on these things. I think he said it best. I think that was a pretty eloquent assessment of this. This is horrendous. This is ridiculous, and it is an insult not only to Mike and Nori but to the coaching profession. Not only that, it's potentially going to backfire right out of the gate because Mike and Nori now has to hire a staff of assistant coaches. You know what coaches want, as we all do? Some sense of job security, or at least a sense that I'm going to be able to, when I move my family somewhere, say Portland, that I'm going to be there for at least a couple of years. Mike and Nori cannot guarantee anybody that he wants to hire, that he's offering jobs to for his first ever coaching staff as a head coach. He can't guarantee any of them beyond a year. And let's face it, a year's not even a year in the NBA, because what we're really talking about is the season. That's not even a full 12 months. They'll sign up to join on July 1st, and Tom Dundon could fire them all next April 20th. So now you're already hamstringing your new head coach because it's going to be harder to recruit assistant coaches. And I will tell you, and I know this for a fact, there are any number of coaches, coaching agents, and others who were steering way clear of the Trailblazers during this process. And they are risking turning off all kinds of talent, coaching talent, scouts, front office people, players and their agents. The more Tom Dundon pulls this kind of crap, the worse it's going to be for the Blazers long term. Because, yeah, you can probably always find somebody who will take the bad deal or who needs the opportunity, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the best of the best, for one. And two, like, eventually there's going to be enough people who steer away from you that it's going to hurt. Like, he thinks he can do this and still win. That's the thing. He feels like, I'm not worried about my image or what people say about me. And everybody says like this is a real thing. He truly doesn't care. It's nice to be a billionaire and not have to care what anybody thinks about you. Fine. It's not what we think about him personally or his management style that really matters. It's whether players and coaches and scouts and everybody else want to be there. And if they don't, that is going to hurt your ability to win. And eventually that may then also hurt your ability to sell tickets to Blazers fans. So this is all short-sighted and colossally stupid.
It reminds me of semi-pro, where Will Ferrell is the owner and also the starting power forward, and the guy hits the full court shot to win $10,000, and it's a fake sponsor. And Will Ferrell panics to have to give this guy it's a comedy of errors. And here's the thing, Howard, it puts Mike and Nori in a bad spot because a lot of people are going to be cheering for this to not work because they don't want it to happen again. So you kind of feel bad for Mike and Nori.
I do anyway. Like, I know him a little bit, and he's a good guy, and I'm glad he's finally got this opportunity, and no one certainly could begrudge him. No one should begrudge him, and I don't think his coaching peers begrudge him, even if they're wincing a little bit, because what you'd like to be able to say is, well, yeah, there's only 30 of these jobs. That's the cliche among coaches and GMs, right? Well, there's only 30 of these. And that's why sometimes you go sign up for, I don't know, the Sacramento Kings job. There's only 30. You take the opportunity where it is. But doing this under these terms does set a bad precedent potentially and could affect the entire coaching profession, especially if other owners decide they're going to try to do the same. I don't suspect too many will. I think there are a lot of owners who take pride in the fact that, hey, we pay our guys. We go all out. We want the best of the best. You know, we're not Tom Dundon. They'll all use that for sure when there's competition. But still, it's terrible that Mike Inori had to be in this position at all, that he finally gets a chance to be a head coach, and these are the circumstances, and then the stories have to be about his contract instead of about him.
I wonder, and I hate to put everything at the feet of Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, who certainly has had several issues pop up during his tenure, but when you're doing your due diligence in order to approve a new owner, I mean, the board of governors have to vote on this stuff. I wonder if there's a lesson to be learned here. Like if we're going to allow, because there are plenty of people certainly that would like to buy into an NBA basketball team. Like if we're going to allow an ownership group to buy one of our products, things like this, it just feels like it shouldn't be allowed. I don't have an answer. It just feels like it shouldn't be allowed.
It's a terrible look for his league. Like Adam defended Tom Dundon on a podcast a few weeks back, and I was stunned. Like you could have just played that one down the middle or no commented it or whatever, or I don't know, maybe actually criticize him and say, traditionally this is not what works in our league, and he'll learn his lessons. I mean, again, one of those days where, and we hate to say it, but I don't think David Stern would have had the same response. And listen, you don't know exactly how an owner is going to operate until they get in the league. So this is not to second guess the Board of Governors decision and the league's decision to approve Dundon as an owner. But when he starts doing these kinds of things, and it does look bad for the league, not just the Blazers, it's okay for the commissioner to say, you know what, this is not ideal. This is not the most professional way to run a franchise. They're down to one PR person there, and she wasn't even the one who was in the number one spot when Dundon took over the team. He laid off everybody else, promoted somebody who was in, I think, the secondary role, and did not hire anybody else. So, I think they are the only, to my knowledge, the only one person PR department in the league. That doesn't work. And I'm sure there are various versions of that throughout that organization right now.
All right, before I set you loose, we had referenced the Giannis trade, and the reports were it was either Boston or Miami. Jaylen Brown, I feel like we do this every year because every GM in the league, if you're like, hey, do you want Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on your team? They would all be like, yeah, I want both of them. Let's figure it out. But now there's this weird thing where, once again, Jaylen Brown's name is in trade rumors, and Brad Stevens came out and said, no, we like him. All the things that you have to say when a trade falls through. So whether it's Jaylen Brown in Boston or any other players of note, any anticipation of moves that could be made that actually would make a difference?
The Jaylen Brown one's interesting because it feels like they've already gone pretty far down that road, and he knows that they've been dangling him. And there are continuous reports, including our friend Chris Mannix, saying that they're continuing to explore things using Jaylen Brown as the bait. So it feels like there's some momentum in that direction, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a deal done because it's really hard to get deals done. The Grizzlies are obviously desperate to move John Morant. I don't know where you're depositing John Morant and his contract and all of his baggage, but they'll try. I think it's fair to still keep an eye on Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers. We're still waiting for the the cap circumvention investigation to conclude. Who knows? Will they void Kawhi's contract? That's worth watching too. I suspect the dominoes have not all fallen yet. And, Giannis coming off the board quickly means it loosens up everything else. The Pistons have been rumored as somebody who, a team that might want to try to pry Tyler Hero loose now from the Bucks. I think the Cavaliers still have moves to make. We still don't know LeBron's future. So I think we'll get our fair share of fireworks between now and, the actual fireworks day in July.
Howard, appreciate the time, man. Have an excellent week. Good stuff as always, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks, Spence. Take care.
All right. Howard Beck from The Ringer. Always appreciate his time. Some good stuff on the potential of the Utah Jazz next year and the latest on the landscape of the offseason in the NBA. Good news. If you are looking to buy new windows, we got a great deal for you. Now, weather's hot, smoky, air quality's not great. If you come home from work, open your door, and your wife and children are sweating, and it's too hot in your house, or you're having trouble sleeping and the air conditioning is on, it's your windows. So not only are you suffering in your home, you're wasting a grip of money. If it's the same deal in the winter where you have your heater jacked up as high as it can, but your house is freezing all the time, it's the air that's coming in because you need new windows, and you're also wasting money on your power bill. The good news is our friends at Advanced Window Products have their summer window special going on right now, where you can save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. Now, discounts can be prorated for fewer than 10 windows. That's a new thing they're doing. Nate Orchard, mayor of Sac Lake City, Jake Weber, these are great people. It's a local company. They guarantee their work for life. And if you're looking to maybe sell your home coming up in the fall, school year type thing, you might as well take advantage of this offer too, because their lifetime guaranteed warranties transfer over to the new homeowner. So that's something you can add to improve the curb appeal of a home you might want to sell. So take advantage of it right now at advancedwindows.com, advancedwindows.com, or give them a call at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, Everett Gray is going to join us coming up on the other side. We'll let you hear from Austin Ainge coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Mark Harlan, it's going to be a replay of an interview that we did a couple of weeks ago. We'll bring that back later in case you missed it. A lot of feedback on the interview with Mark. So a busy show the rest of the way. Wednesday drive, halfway through that work week and one day closer to the weekend. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. If you missed the Mark Harlan interview a couple weeks ago now, I'm going to bring that back around. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the show. Not too often we get Mark in studio for an entire hour. Well, I guess it was about 30 minutes. So if you missed it, we got a lot of feedback on that interview. Austin Ainge addressed the media last night after the Jazz drafted Darren Peterson. We'll let you hear from him. But joining us now, it's been a long time. Former pro hooper, now doing some coaching locally in the AAU circuits and with Corner Canyon. Always good to have Everett Gray on the show. Everett Gray, how are you, sir? Happy Wednesday.
I'm doing great. Here at Spence, I think the Tribe Called Quest is one of the underrated hip-hop groups of all time. And rest in peace, Fife.
My man.
I really think is like one of the – I can listen to that whole that first album.
No, I'm with you. In fact, one of the highlights of my career for a while, Fife was actually trying to do some sports analysis. He called himself the Fanalist. And so he was going on radio shows across. I interviewed him twice, Everett. It was like I still have those interviews. It was really cool.
That's crazy. But, yeah, he's a very good MC, and rest in peace, Fife.
Indeed. Well said. How you been, man? What's going on with you? Give us the latest.
Just busy with with club, and the month of June is usually high school stuff, Section 7 and Cali Live, and it's just super busy with high school basketball and club. And that just keeps you busy the whole time, because at Corner Canyon, I call it University of Corner Canyon, because it's just year round. It's almost like and all of our sports do pretty well at Spence. They do pretty well. So, and I shout out to all the coaches at Corner Canyon, but I think we do a lot of stuff and keep the kids busy year round.
How has, it's funny, Everett, because, I played high school basketball in the 90s, and AAU was new, so I was able to play some AAU basketball my junior and senior year, but it really wasn't much of a thing. And when the basketball season was over, you decided if you wanted to go play football in the fall or baseball in the spring, and now it really is this year-round game. How has the high school AAU circuit changed since I was playing and you were playing back in the day?
So the thing is that even Spence, I'm older than you, Spence. So I played AAU basketball, and the crazy part, Spence, is that my AAU coach is still doing it. He's still coaching. It's hilarious. And I actually played him a few times, and I'm 4-1 against him, but we're not going to get into that. But it's big business, even down in the AAU ranks. Spence, it's crazy. Some of these kids are getting paid to play AAU basketball. Obviously, EYBL, Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, everybody has a circuit at this point. But it's big business, and you will see some NBA scouts at AAU events. We're fortunate to be on Adidas this year, but a couple of years since we were on Nike, and we're in the same venues with the EYBL teams, and those teams are crazy. Each team has a pro, maybe two. And these kids are getting paid just to play AAU basketball on certain teams, and flying parents and giving them deals, and it's getting crazy. And you see why Dusty May probably, I don't know if you saw the interviews the last couple of days. He said he's been dealing with agents, and he couldn't even enjoy the Final Four winning the national championship because he had to start the next day and recruit his own guys. And I remember when Larry Kristoviak was at the U, and he told me, because his son played on my club team, he said he has to recruit his own guys first and then go out and recruit at the same time. So it's just crazy how this NIL stuff and it trickles down to AAU basketball, and it's just getting crazy. And I wish I would have came along a little bit earlier. I wish my mom waited like 15, maybe 20 years later. I would have been all right.
So as it pertains to the way that the new reality of these young people being able to get paid for their name, image, and likeness, and let me be clear, as I've talked about for years, they always should have been able to do this, so I'm not anti it at all. But there will be some unintended consequences, and we've already seen some. Any of it permeating in the high school level, because Corner Canyon, football, basketball, I mean, it's a powerhouse. It's turned into a powerhouse. So tell me what it's like coaching high school basketball in the current climate.
At corner, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know about our football program.
Sure.
And if your football program is really good, everything else is good. Kids want to come there. And the parents, you have to deal with some parent situations. That's just what it is. But it's super competitive at Corner Canyon. They push each other. Our volleyball team, Coach Ricks, does a really good job. She just won state, and we have a middle blocker that's on the U.S. national team, and she just committed to Texas A&M. We have another girl going to Baylor to play. So all of our sports are thriving at corner, and we do it, Spence, with majority of Draper kids, surrounding kids. When Coach Kerr was there, him and I used to talk about the phone calls he used to get around the country about quarterbacks, because Coach Kerr obviously is at Weber State now. He took Weber State, but he used to just tell me, like, sometimes I have to say no to 5-star guys because we already are loaded already. But it's just crazy with the landscape of high school basketball. And the good thing is that our kids at Corner Canyon are super competitive, and they play hard. And in that area, Spence, you already know it's a well-off area, but sometimes those kids don't play hard because their futures are already planned for them. But they take this really serious, and that goes with all of our sports. And that's why I'm proud of all of our kids at Corner Canyon, because they don't really need it, Spence. They didn't grow up like I did, single-parent mom and trying to make it work. But these kids work hard, and they play hard, and all of our sports are thriving. And we are, and it's a credit to our administrators too. Dina Kohler does a great job letting our coaches be coaches and not listening to the parents all the time.
Love to hear that. And you played on a college basketball team that, if allowed back in the day, you guys were the show. And it was kind of my indoctrination in college basketball and watching all of your games and watching those great runs and then the battles with Duke and then the one shining moment. Like, you guys made me want to play basketball. And later on, obviously, Greg Anthony became a Knick and became friends with the family, and LJ, that running Rebel team, Everett Gray, in this modern day and age, I don't even know how you put a team like that together. You guys would have cost a lot of money, and maybe some of the players actually did, if you catch my drift.
The crazy part, people have been telling some stories lately, to be honest, Spence, because there's only one guy still alive. And then once he move on, then some more stories will start coming out, because, Spence, the thing is that this was UNLV. Back then, it was some dudes, and you didn't mess around with it. So, if you know what I mean. So
sure.
No one's ever talked about it, because we respected Coach Tark and what he did for a lot of student athletes, UNLV. But we're starting to tell some stories. Larry, I was waiting for Larry to start telling some stories. So he went on the podcast with Matt Barnes and Jack, and he's told one story. He's like, ooh, but I just remember one guy passed away. So he can start telling some stories. Because it's rare. Like, if I told some stories 2 years ago, Spence, if I told a story on your show right now, like, you going to start my car every morning? Like, that's a real thing.
Sure it is, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a real thing. So, like UNLV in Las Vegas, Vegas now is it's all corporate right now. So it's cool. But it's not like a one-owner guy that you can go to his house, like a Steve Wynn, and go to his house. It's just, you couldn't tell all the stories. But we're going to start telling stories. And Spence, I'll come on in about a year, because I think this one guy has one more year or two. And then I'll tell you some stories. And then it'll all make sense. But we wasn't the only one. I'll give you that. We weren't the only one doing what we were doing back in the day, because Coach used to give us a few words and say some stuff. But like I said, this one guy's still around. And Spence, I can tell you some stories right now, but you got to start my car every morning.
Fair enough. I can't make that drive every morning. Can you?
No, Spence, I live by you. I live downtown in the Avenues. Don't give me that, Spence. You can start my car.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's get into some stories, and I'll drive over and start your car tomorrow.
I can't really get into it, but Spence, I'll definitely, not Spence, but I'll definitely tell you some stories, and it's not super crazy. It's just we just respect Coach Tark and a few guys that was around the program. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't want you to say anything that you didn't want to say or get yourself in trouble. I do want to ask you, I know I've asked you this before, but what was it like? LJ was a very good pro. And if his back didn't go out, we never would have been able to have him in New York because Charlotte wouldn't have traded him for Mason. So I'm actually kind of glad we got him in New York. But I wonder how many current basketball fans remember what a beast young Larry Johnson was.
Yeah, Larry, I just talked to him a couple of days ago, and we talked. We all do. We all still talk. I talked to Greg, everybody, Anderson, you name it. But if Larry didn't get hurt, I don't know how, like you said, I don't think he would have been in New York. He would have stayed in Charlotte. But, they moved on from Alonzo, but that's another story I got to tell you off air.
Okay.
Why Alonzo got moved. But Larry is a very good player. One of my best teammates ever. Super competitive for his size. He was super athletic. I just wish he didn't hurt his back and to see the real Larry Johnson. But he gave the Knicks fans some great memories, especially with that 4-point play with Indiana. But if he didn't get hurt, I think his game would have got better because as he got older and the game was changing a little bit in the late 90s up into the early 2000s, I think he would even expanded his game because he started to expand his game a little bit more. But if he still had that explosiveness, he would have been great with the jump shot because his jump shot was coming. And I just think people don't understand how good that guy was. And I saw it up front every day in practice for my first 2 years at UNLV.
I'm quite sure I know the LJ Alonzo Mourning story. I'll tell you this. Those guys never missed a chance to throw punches at each other. I mean, every time those two had a chance to square up, you knew that it was going down.
Yeah. If we had a pod, I would probably go on and say it, but it's just there's a lot of moving parts because I know both sides of the story. But I think you said you know the story, and you know what it is. You know what – let's just put it this way. The Philadelphia Eagles had a situation, right, and they had to move on from a guy. It's similar to that.
Yeah.
And use your imagination.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know the surface level of what was alleged to go down. I would be – and by the way, Everett, good news. I do have a podcast, and you're now invited to join that show, and all we're going to talk about is why Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning want to kill each other.
I would love to go because it was we played Georgetown my sophomore year at Tucson, and there was a situation at the free throw line, and I'll tell it on the pod. But Greg Anthony dug deep what he said to Alonzo at the free throw line, and he fouled out Spence after this comment. He didn't play well after he lost his crap. I can't even cuss, but on the podcast I can. But he lost his crap at the free throw line, and it was a very interesting story. But I'll tell you later on that one. But yeah, it's some great stories, tons of great stories at UNLV, and I won't even get into the last year at Rollie Massimino with J.R. Ryder. You can do a whole 30 for 30 on that year with Jay Wright and Rollie Massimino and J.R. Ryder our senior year. So I got some great stories. I haven't really told a lot of my stories. But I do have a few.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I mean, again, I just know surface level because Greg was also a Nick and LJ later on, and I can remember being young and just kind of being like, "What?" Every time we play the Heat, Larry and Alonzo are throwing punches at each other. Like, what's going on here? And then obviously, because they were teammates, like, was it ever like kosher and copacetic between the two of them when they were in Charlotte together?
I just think it was more business. Why they were there together. But once Alonzo got traded to Miami and then Larry got, I don't know if they played 1 year against each other when he was in Charlotte. I think Larry was hurt. Then they moved on from Larry and moved into New York. And then that's when every time they saw each other, they got into it. I can honestly tell you, Alonzo was in Las Vegas a lot. And he always came to our open runs because John Thompson and Coach Tark were very close friends. And so a lot of Georgetown players now, Spence, live in Las Vegas and work in the hotel industry because of Coach Tark and John's relationship. So those guys used to come back. Yeah, and John and Larry, I mean, not Larry, but Alonzo, he ended up meeting someone, let's just put it that way, from the state of Nevada. And we can talk about that later. But the thing is that, yes, that's why the connection with a lot of Georgetown players and UNLV players, because we're really close, because those kids used to come to Vegas and play pickup with us over run. And then some of them worked in the hotel industry after they were done playing basketball or when they were done at Georgetown.
I have so many follow-up questions that are so inappropriate that I will not ask today.
You are crazy. Don't do it, Spence.
I won't.
I'm not going to do it.
I want to ask you about Stacey Augmon, though. I always felt like he was never talked about enough as far as what he meant to those teams.
Yeah, Ice taught me a lot about defense on the defensive end. Obviously he's 6'8", 6'9", long. I had to guard him every day. But the greatest, he's another good teammate, super quiet. He didn't, not a verbal leader. He was just lead by example. But Ice, we call him Ice. Ice was probably one of that whole team. We all liked each other. Occasionally we had some fights, but we left it, on the floor and in a locker room or wherever we was fighting at. But he was the consummate pro, even at that level. We were in high school because back then, Spence, we were like a traveling rock band. We were just before the Fat Five, and wherever we went, it was crazy. We didn't charter flights all the time, and that was another story. But it was good, and he was the main guy that kept us all together. Even when things were going a little bit left, he kept us together because when he said something, everybody was like, okay, let's listen, shut up and listen, because Ice has something to say. So great teammate, great player, great person, doing well, and he's working back at UNLV as a special assistant.
So you're a big boy. As far as the fights in practice, who was the guy? Who was the guy you didn't want to square up with, and why was it George Ackles?
George, it wasn't George.
Huh?
That was a guy named Melvin Love.
Melvin Love. Yeah, he's like what, 6'10"?
6'10", about 250, straight gang member. Still was banging in college, and we had a. Okay, I can tell you this story. So Melvin is a Crip. We had some Bloods on the team. Stacy's a Blood. And Chris Jeter is a Blood, and we had some situations. So when we traveled to California, played Cal State Fullerton and Long Beach State. Rival gangs is, sitting next to each other because, one guy from San Diego, part of San Diego is all Blood. Stacy's from Pasadena, all Blood. And then we got some Crips. It was hilarious to see them, interact, and especially in practice because, what's up, Blood? What's up, cuz? But like I said earlier, when it came down to it, we really wanted to win. But the gang stuff came out sometimes in heated moments, especially in practice, those crazy practices in the beginning, and it's competitive. But at the end of the day, we were all a teammate, we were a family. But the gang stuff sometimes came out, especially with Irvine, Spence, and it went left in a little fight. And Larry tried to jump on one of the sides. I'm like, Larry, you from Texas? You're a gang member. Stay out of this. This is some deep-rooted stuff that you have no clue about. So stay out of it. But some great stories.
That's wild. Did Tark? I mean, obviously he knew, but was he aware that he was recruiting players from rival gangs?
No, he didn't know.
Oh, okay.
He didn't know about that. But one of our assistants did know.
Okay.
And he always kept it. He always like, hey, leave that at home. We're here to win games, and leave that at home, and try to respect your teammates and leave all that. You're not in the streets anymore. You're playing in front of you. You're on CBS. It's like you're playing on CBS at 1 PM prime time. So yeah, don't let's leave that at home. Let's leave that at home and let's try to win this games. In the middle of all of this is aspiring politician Greg Anthony, right? I mean, what was the Greg Anthony? He was raised in Vegas, but he didn't strike me as some sort of gang member. No, so Greg was a Republican. Yeah. And, Spence, I don't get into politics. Did I vote? Yes. And I don't need to wear a red hat or a blue hat. I don't need to do all that. I don't post anything like that. I voted and kept it pushing. But Greg was a young Republican, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. But he didn't overdo it and made a big scene of it. I think the media made a big scene of it. He did all that young Republican stuff in the summer and in the spring after our season. So we didn't really talk about it because he was the only one that was into that. And we didn't care. Like, you do you. And like I said, that team was like an NBA team, Spence. I mean, I played with 7 or 8 NBA dudes in 4 years. So we was all business. And if you want to go do that, you do you, Greg. And Greg had his own business. He got off scholarship. Then the NCAA was like, you can't do that. You got to get back on scholarship. You're making too much money. Like he outfitted Spence, our whole team with his sweatsuit company. So we were wearing that for like 2 weeks, and the NCAA was like, nah, we ain't doing that. You're not doing that. You're making too much money. You got to get back. They made him go back on scholarship.
Jeez.
Spence. Yeah. I can tell you so much craziness. Like the NCAA was following us around, taking pictures and showing us pictures, and you was eating here. Did you pay? You have no clue all the stuff. Not a lot of people don't know all the backstories of all the crap we went through. But it was a lot, but the great thing, Spence, it was we was okay with him doing this thing because it was all in the summer.
Yeah, and look, he was a tough player. I can remember I was in Phoenix when he tried to kill Kevin Johnson when the Knicks played the Suns, and he wasn't afraid. But as far as personalities go, Greg did kind of feel like the outlier in that group, at least from the outside looking in.
He was just different. He was already thinking 2 plays ahead. And that's how him and I got along. We're still friends to this day, obviously.
Nice.
And we talk. And I always try to pick his brain all the time because he was always 2 plays ahead. He wasn't just thinking about basketball. He used to always tell me, hey, Av, this basketball, it's a small window of your life. And then you got 40 more years to live. And then what are you going to do? What is going to be your impact on this world? So I always got that from him because he took me on my recruiting visit. 2 times I was there, so that's another violation. But we're not going to get into that, Spence. But the thing is that I always picked his brain because he was always thinking 2 plays ahead.
I was going to ask you about the Jazz. This is all I want to do, though. I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I got to ask you. I got to ask you about that locker room and how you guys felt about Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley and the Duke Blue Devils.
The crazy part, we didn't think anything about it. It was just there was another team we played against, and the first time obviously we beat them by 30. I don't think they was just ready for the size and the physicality, and they got better the next year. Obviously, they got Grant Hill the next year. People always ask me questions, why you didn't beat him the next year? I'm like, Grant Hill.
Yep,
he was freaking good. Right, he dropped 20 on us in 10, and Larry got in the foul. Now, Greg Anthony didn't foul out. We probably would have won that game. And that changed everything when he fouled out. And Anderson never played the point in the whole year or so. But we never really hated those guys. It was just another opponent. I talked to Grant during the All-Star game when it was here, and he asked me the question. I was like, nah, we didn't hate anybody. You were just another opponent. And that's the way we looked at it. And you beat us because you showed up. I wish you was a junior in high school. We probably would have won back-to-back national championships. But that was the only reason why. I mean, people think we hated Duke. No, we didn't hate Duke. It's just they were just another opponent. Now, the people we didn't like was Arkansas. Now, we're not going to even get into that.
Oh, okay.
That was interesting. But, yeah, it's so many stories, Spence. I can tell you, it'll blow your mind, all the stuff we had to deal with and all those backstories with Lonzo and Larry and even Greg and all the other stuff. I can tell you stories for 5 hours and you'd be like, no, that didn't happen. Yes, it did.
I would believe everything you would say because you were there. And as a basketball junkie and historian, again, watching, like, even players that were just kind of like playing high school basketball watching your team was terrifying. You guys scared everybody. You were a terrifying group because of how big and strong and athletic you were. And there's a case to be made that it's one of the best college basketball teams of all time. And you played on the team. It's really cool.
It's actually cool. And the thing is that, Spence, I know you know my daughter was in the Olympics with the rugby team. And I get a text from my daughter. It's like, Dad, I'm sending you a picture. And it was Kevin Durant with her at open ceremony. And he telling to her, he's like, your dad was one of my favorite players when I was young.
Nice.
And I was like, because he's like one of my favorite players. I'm still a fan. So, but to be honest, Spence, the thing is that playing on that team still opened doors for me to this day. I can go to a lot of sporting events and get in for free and get after a little bit for free, if you know what I mean, Spence. And it was a great team, and I was lucky to be on that team, and I would never trade it. All the other crap we went through, I think it made me a stronger person as an adult.
Do any of your kids have any frame of reference for the team that you played on? Or are you like, just go to YouTube and watch? Like, any of your kids know that deal?
Yeah, both of my daughters do. I don't know if you know my story. Both of my kids went to BYU, graduated from there, Olympic team, and Alexa's on the Canadian national team and trying to qualify for the Olympics. And she knows about it, and all of her teammates' parents knows about it. And, I don't really like talking about it. If you bring it up, I'll talk about it. But my kids do know because I was still playing. I played until I was 38, so it was around a little bit. So they know who their dad and what he did.
What about the kids you coach?
Oh, yeah. They'll go on YouTube and look it up.
Okay.
Like, you did that? You played against him? You dunked on him? I'm like, yeah. Why you didn't tell me? I was like, I supposed to tell you? It's some crap that happened a long time. Almost cussed, Spence. Almost cussed.
You're good.
It was, it was some stuff that happened a long time ago. But if you ask me a question, I'll answer it. But my high school kids and my club team, they asked me some questions because I got a chance to guard against some really good players. Spence, Michael Jordan, and one night people don't even, some kids you probably know, Lionel Simmons, and gave me nuts, and Jamal Mashburn gave me problems.
Yep.
And it was just they don't even know who those guys are because they all really focus on the big names, but they don't know there are some really good players on each team.
Jamal Mashburn gave a lot of people problems, Everett. You're not alone there. Hey, before I set you loose, kind of random here, you referenced your daughter, Alexa. Did you know that we were at a New Year's Eve party together this last New Year's Eve?
She told me that.
She is lovely.
She told me that.
And by the way, what a badass. What a badass player.
She gets it from her mom.
There you go.
She gets it all from her mom, yeah. But she did tell me that.
Well, you should be. Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you should be really proud. I mean, she's a delight to talk to. And when I found out she was your daughter, we just had some fun storytelling time. And I didn't put it together initially. And she asked what I did. And she said, you might know my dad. I'm like, of course I know your dad. But just a lovely, lovely girl. And obviously a hell of a volleyball player. You done good there, Everett.
Yeah, I got lucky, man. Married a cool wife. And she had some great kids. And I always tell my kids now, Spence, you got to give your kids some chance. Got to give your kids a chance. Marry over your skis.
Absolutely. Well, look, this has been a pleasure, and let's tell some stories on the podcast if you're okay with it.
Yeah, we can do that for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Be well. Okay.
You too.
Everett Gray. I was going to ask him about Darren Peterson, but all I want to know is what happened with Jerry Tarkanian and Larry Johnson and Greg Anthony and Stacey Ogman and Anderson Hunt. Those teams were terrifyingly good. You were not born.
I wasn't.
Okay. So you have nothing to add?
Nope.
Okay.
Just some personal battles with one Everett Gray.
Like playing against him?
Yeah, I played against him in high school. Not him, but some academy teams.
Ah, okay. Well, appreciate his time. If you're a basketball junkie, that was a lot of fun. Everett is coaching for Corner Canyon, doing some AAU stuff. On social media, Everett Gray 23. And yeah, those running Rebel teams, man, those Vegas teams were absolutely terrifying. All right, coming up next, Austin Ainge addressed the media last night after the Jazz selected Darren Peterson. We'll play some of those comments for you. Mark Harlan. If you missed that interview, that comes right a little bit later on. So busy show. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, last night, a historic night for the Utah Jazz. Hopefully, we'll look back on this as a really exciting thing. They drafted Darren Peterson with the number 2 overall pick. And in case you missed it, here's the reaction of the decision maker, Austin Ainge.
We're so excited to add Darren. He's a really talented player. He is a really hard worker. He's got a culture fit, talent fit, game fit with our organization. And we think he'll be a huge part of us in the short term and the long term. We're really excited to add him. Had a chance to talk to him a minute ago, and he's super pumped. And Coach talked to him, and we're really excited.
Also, on lottery night, were you thinking, I hope Darren's there at number 2?
I don't want to do that because it kind of affects everyone else. I'll just say that there's a lot of good players in this draft, and it was a hard decision, but we're so thrilled to have Darren, and he definitely fits us super well, and he fits it pretty much everywhere. He's a really good player, but I think particularly our roster, it really goes well.
What do you think?
Before you talked to him tonight, when was the last time you talked to him?
We went out and met with him last week, and we went to his hometown. We went to Canton and hung out with him, and talked about our team and our program and how he would fit. And he shared how excited he would be to be with us if it went that way on draft night. He even was nice enough to stop in the middle of he's getting a bunch of new ink on his arm. You guys will see. He's a big movie guy, so he's got a lot of movie characters on his arm now. He was showing us that, so that was kind of a fun little meeting with him, and we talked about his family and what we would do if he ends up with us, and we all left very excited about the possibility.
You talk about fit. What do you think he adds to this roster that maybe was missing before?
He's just a really talented player, and the thing that we like most about him is for a 19-year-old, he feels very complete. He can drive left, he can drive right, he can shoot off the catch, he can shoot off the dribble, he can guard, he can play pick and roll, he can play off the ball. It feels like he can help all of our other talented players in a lot of different ways.
There's a lot of questions just about his health, kind of in the lead-up of the draft. Obviously, cramping issues, the lingering hamstring injury. Where do you guys feel like he's at in terms of just the health process and your evaluation of that?
He's been working out twice a day, every day, and he feels great. And when he did show me his tattoo, he looks stronger already. He's been working pretty hard. Our doctors went through everything from the combine and all the tests that were ordered, and we feel very comfortable, and he's ready to hit the ground running. We plan on seeing him in Summer League.
Are there any health issues that haven't kind of come to light yet that we need to know about him?
Nope.
Last year you had 5 and 21. This year just number 2, so you probably dove extra deep on way less guys this year around. Was there anything that maybe surprised you with Darren in the whole process?
I would just say that when you can go as deep as we did in this process, you get a limited amount of interaction with the player himself, and that's the case with all these guys and all the draft ranges. But you get a sense for what their coaches think about them, and it was great. I mean, Darren got rave reviews from all of them. They speak a lot about his family and how solid and normal feels almost like an insult, but it's a positive thing in the sense. They just say he's just a really well-raised, really respectful, hardworking young man. And one thing that showed up a lot was just his work ethic and his confidence, his kind of quiet confidence, not scared of the moment, even though he's a quieter person.
What were the conversations like with Will in terms of how Darren can fit into the team's style of play? Yeah,
I mean, I think Will has been really excited about this. He because Darren fits all the plays in the playbook, right? He like I said, he is a well-rounded player, and there really isn't anything that he can't do. Obviously, he's 19 and he's got a lot of work to do, and we're gonna try to help him get as ready to win ball games as we can by opening night. But he doesn't have a glaring weakness. He just just needs to keep getting better at everything.
What are the thoughts or feelings about him playing, whether it's the 1 or 2 or a combo guard, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I think the playoffs and most games show us you need lots of guys that can attack and handle. And I think that position is probably better defined now by defense and then offense. We talk about LeBron, Luka. What are they? They're point guards on offense and 3s or 4s or 2s on defense, and it doesn't really matter what you call Darren. He's going to run a lot of pick and roll. He's going to come off screens. He's going to come off handoffs, just like a lot of our other players in our offense. So he can do everything, and we'll just see how it expands and how it fits within the group and the best way to use him early. And maybe 3 years from now, there's even more ways. And but we're really excited to throw him in all these situations.
Do you remember the first time that you saw Darren play?
I don't. It all kind of blends together. I mean, I'm trying to picture, like, we were rewatching film last week, and I knew I was going crazy when I could, like, predict what was going to happen in each possession. And it was just like, I'm so tired of watching all of this, So, but I mean, I've seen plenty of high school games, plenty of high school all-star games. I don't remember the first one, to be honest with you.
Walk me through the Canton trip. Why was it so important for you guys to kind of get that FaceTime with them, and what was it like just being there with him in his own time?
We felt really comfortable with him in the combine, and we had been in great communication with his group and talking about everything. We just wanted to be a little extra sure, right? And we have the time. With only the number 2 pick, we were not doing tons of draft workouts, and so let's just go out and see him and see where he's from, get to know him even better, and just make sure that if we ended up with him on draft night, that we have the best plan from day one.
So who's we? Like to see him?
Myself, Avery Bradley, Danny Ainge, and Justin Zanuck. Ryan and Will were both in weddings. Couldn't make it, but we went, and they called them, and like I said, we've been in contact throughout. And Ryan and Will were both at the combine and talked to him there. So we've all had a chance to talk to him.
Austin, some years it's pretty clear who the number 1 guy is, or the number 1 and 2 guys, but there was really good talent in this draft. When did you really decide on your board and come to a conclusion where you knew who you wanted to take as number 2 pick?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Like, it's a group and it's a team. This is all a team effort. And but I would say a few days ago is when I kind of locked in and sat down with Ryan and said, hey, let's do this. And he was all on board and excited with what we ended up with.
I'm just curious if you could describe the feeling in the room, because just the energy you're giving off right now, like,
yeah.
I can tell you're pumped, you're excited. Just what was it like to submit Darren as that number 2 pick and then know that it's happening?
It was great, and we're so excited about Darren. It's just a culmination of a lot of patience and a lot of building, right? And we're just really grateful for our fans and the fact that they've stuck with us through this rebuild, and we're really excited that on top of Darren, we feel like we've got a bunch of other talented players and that we can make big steps this year. So it's Darren, and then it's all of that all together.
You said that it was a hard decision. You also said you feel like Darren's just a very complete player.
Yeah.
What was, in your mind, kind of the deciding factor on choosing him in such a talented draft?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. The draft is hard. There's, as a league, right, we don't always get it right, but Darren felt like such a great fit. Like I said, culture, talent, position, ability, who he is and what he cares about. It feels like it really fits our team.
You mentioned that on the Canton trip that you told Darren what you wanted to do with him and let him know what the plan was, and I'm kind of wondering what it was that you told him. What is it that you want to do with him?
We talked about our roster. We talked about our system. We asked him, how much he knew about our players and Utah and our history. And we showed him about how amazing the Jazz fans are, how many sellouts in a row we've had, how they support us through thick and thin. We talked about the way we play basketball, how we are a ball movement, body movement offense, and he loved the sound of that, and he liked to hear that we're going to go all in trying to win next year, as many games as we can, and that we think we really have the talent to both help him and that he can help.
You kind of already hit on it, but you've made moves. You got Jaren Jackson Jr. before the trade deadline. You have a lot of experienced players, some guys that have been all-stars, but you also have a young core. Where do you feel like he fits into that, and how beneficial do you think it will be for his future to kind of play alongside some players that have been all-stars and have that experience?
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. But Darren is like I said, a very complete player for his age, and so I think he will fit seamlessly in with our group. But it's always a big transition for 19-year-olds. So we'll do everything we can this summer to get him and Ace and Keontae and Lowry and Jaren and Walker and Bryce, Svi and Cody, everybody on the same page and get as much chemistry and work and get ready.
All right, Mark Harlan's going to stop by. Let's be honest, we recorded this a couple weeks ago, but a lot of feedback if you missed it. We'll talk with Mark coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, wrapping up the show. A lot of good stuff today. Of course, a lot of Utah Jazz-related topics with the NBA draft last night. Some news that came down earlier today. We've been busy. It is official. The new partner for the University of Utah as far as their athletic gear is concerned, the official footwear, uniform, apparel, and sideline partner of the Utes, beginning in 2027, 2028, is Adidas, as has been long rumored. So that is official. Utah announced that not too long ago. We'll break that down on the show tomorrow. Porter, what's coming up on a Thursday edition of The Drive?
Thursday edition of the program. Brian Dunseth joins us live from the World Cup. We'll chat with Dave McMiniman, NBA Daily Assist, of course, reacting to the draft and trades and whatnot there. We'll have a member from RSL joining us. Of course, they are on a break, but talking some more World Cup on a Thursday ahead of Team USA returning to action. And we'll go from there on a Thursday.
There you go. So join us for a Thursday show. We'll say goodnight for this Wednesday edition. Special thank you to Sarah Todd, Howard Beck, Everett Gray, Little Austin Age Sound, and Mark Harlan from a couple of weeks ago. If you miss any of the sound from the show, go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store for free. And then check out our podcast page while you're at it. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It really does help. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Wednesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Thursday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.